Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 60 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Ratnos, joined by Tettles.
Yo, what's up?
And Trell.
Hey, guys.
Or BDGG Trell, as they call him.
I gained a lot of syllables in my name yesterday.
Welcome. Congratulations on the acquisition, on the pickup.
Thanks,
Wait,
yeah, I'm
hold
really
on.
excited about it.
Did he get? Hold on. Did he have an acquisition, or did they acquire
There
him?
was an acquisition, right?
Okay, yes, there we go.
So that's why, congratulations on the acquisition. It works. Anyways, so yes, Trell's joined up with BDGG, America's second place guild in the world.
Yep.
What does that mean for you?
It's basically a streaming thing, so I'm not on the actual raid team, but everything else that BDGG does, I represent. So the perks for me are good things for me. Like, I'm not after a bunch of money. It's a perfect thing. They're not like a huge organization like a previously big name in the community, but there are like video editing perks and lots of other things that is nice to have as a content creator. So I'm really excited.
Very, very, very cool.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I've been playing a lot of stuff other than WoW as well. I've kind of decided to not play too much beta and also not play too much BFA and just kind of wait until Shadowlands comes out. So for the next month, I'm going to be variety streaming and raid logging. Tuesdays I'll play WoW. Maybe I'll do one other WoW day or something. And then other than that,
Are you telling me that you don't want to do 24 horrific visions?
I no longer wish for horrific visions. I did do a lot of horrific visions in my time.
Yes.
I did. I had 9 characters with caught up capes before you could buy Malefic cores. And then literally the second Malefic cores became purchasable, I stopped doing visions. I was like, all right, I don't need to do these anymore. If I ever really care.
What about not bringing back the comp stomp for this most recent week?
Oh, dude, that was so tragic. Apparently that it was legitimately bugged, and they'd known about it since the last time as well, but nobody had really communicated it to anybody, and so they had to pull it urgently, and nobody knew it was going to happen.
That's unlucky.
I can't imagine being somebody grinding your Blood of the Enemy though, and having that taken away from you. I grinded 7 Blood of the Enemies with comp stomp. That's the move. It's the best way to do it by far.
I think people were looking for rank 4 this most recent comp stomp week though.
Which 7 rank 3s is about 2.1 rank 4s.
You got a problem. You got a problem, bro.
Yeah, that's insane, man.
You got a problem, Travis.
Dude, it was actually pretty fun. Doing the comp stomps is actually pretty fun. When you get it down well and you're winning in 2 minutes, it's actually pretty great. It's not. I wouldn't choose to do it if there wasn't an Essence's reward or whatever. But, anyways, so I've been playing Path of Exile. I've been playing I played Fall Guys yesterday. Either you guys gotten to check out that game yet?
I've seen it. I haven't played it yet, actually.
World of Warcraft has literally ruined every other game for me, man.
I know what you mean. It's really difficult to be to play another game, especially any game where there's you kind of get to this point where you've learned it and you're just all right, now I could put some time into this, and there's World of Warcraft to put time into. It's just
you feel guilty. You're like, I could be farming this 1/10 of a neck level in WoW right now. I can't have fun,
dude. Neck levels are actually a surprising amount of damage right now as well. It's like 500 DPS or something per level, right?
If you have if you have 99 or 100 neck, then it's almost 10k DPS over somebody who has 93. Something stupid.
So that's 500 per level. Yeah. It scales all of the reason isn't because of those 2 secondary stats per level. It's because of the scaling on the essences. All your essences except for Vision Miners continue to scale with neck level infinitely. Mm-hmm. Although Vision Miner stops at neck level 84, so you don't have to worry about that one too much.
Which is 25%.
Yeah, 25% CDR. It doesn't go above that.
They didn't want you getting,
which is good.
Infinite cooldowns.
Well, CDR kind of stacks with increasing returns, right? Going from 0 to 25% is less than 25 to 50. It's like cloak resist. People don't really intuitively understand it, but cloak resist really went to show just the difference between how the difference between 0 to 50 and the difference between 50 to 80 Like that 50 to 80 jump is actually bigger by a lot. All right. Other than that, we've got our Titanforge Podlings guild. I haven't actually checked in too much with them, but it's basically like a fan guild that exists. I actually don't know anything about what their like rules are or anything. We're not directly associated with it. They're just, I mean, obviously we're, you know, they're named after us, and it's a group of largely of patrons of the podcast. But definitely ask them if you're interested in being part of that community. Get in touch with one of the names when we read out the names that says they're of the Titanforge Podlings Guild.
They all changed their name except for Anastasia.
Okay. All right.
After the incredibly long Patreon readout last week.
Yeah, dude, our Patreon read here is getting to about 1 page.
Hold on, it's shrunk this week though. I think. Because of the lack of Titanforge Podling at the end.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into the Patreon read. By the way, though, our main topic this week, we're just gonna cover. We've got a bunch of like Shadowlands information-y discussion. We'll try to keep it from getting too negative, but there's a lot of like Covenant related stuff there where I think largely all three of us have already kind of staked out positions that are critical or at least wary of.
Well, we start on a positive note. There's new affixes.
Yeah, we'll start with the new affixes. That's going to be that's something that I think I'm at least very positive about. With the other stuff, we'll try. I at least will try to provide some compromises that assume I don't get what I'm on the big picture, and just try to make like the individual things as good as possible. So let's start off though by thanking our supporters over at patreon.com for supporting our show every single week. They are Paul of US Proudmore. Titanforge Podlings of US Proudmore is now recruiting more DPS for raids on Sundays at 5 p.m. PST until 7 p.m. PST. DM Anastasia of US Proudmore for more details. Riley, Agent of Chaos, codename Foden. Delete DH, now a Mythic Raider on US Wormrest Accord. Congratulations. Just Gopher. Hearthstone Battlegrounds are the best guilty pleasure Blizzard game. Dude, Trell plays those nonstop sometimes. Trell grinds those Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Okay.
That's true. I played for like 2 hours last night.
Yeah, I've got him addicted.
Dude, I went through a Hearthstone Battlegrounds phase as well. King of Skills, Zuko, Ja, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Donahue, I Wish I Was Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, The Marsh Hare, Regulus, Never Nude, Chewy, Texas's Rodeo, Enjoying Laid Back Life, or Trell. That's an acronym. Texas's Rodeo, dude. That's really is a good creative acronym. Yeah,
I like that.
That's basically him. Rude Dinosaur, Lufer of US Wormrest Accord. Hey, that's the same guild that Delete DH went to, or the same server rather. How many guilds even are there on that server as well? Probably only 2. I don't have friends. I got family. Mugatsu of the guild Titanforge Podlings. Sen of US Kill Jaden. Daz Boot, better mage lead than Tal. Brought to you by Dratnos the Excel Wizard. Brad Ceratops. LF Hard Carry to help Stevenson with his 15 weekly no lever. Necris. Will ever Blizzard care about balance and spec identity? Punk ass. Shadow Priest can pump if you chain pull, just give him the chance. Nevuk. Sinmora. Eevee, Frosty K new meta. Tettles needs to check his DMs so I control my friend more accurately, and also Gino is not 3900 IO and needs to get good.
I'm an idiot and didn't check my DMs for last week's show whenever we went and looked up Gino. Apparently he messaged me about his IO, and I looked at the DM and was like, I need to update this, and totally forgot.
Dude, I do this as well. Whenever I get a DM, if I clear that notification and I don't immediately do whatever I'm supposed to do from it, it's not happening. I will never see the message again. It's over.
That notification is gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck.
I wish you could, dude. You know what I wish you could do on Discord? I wish you could mark conversations as unread, because that's what I do with my email. If I read an email and I'm like, I need to do something about this, I'll like mark it as unread.
Yeah,
and then I agree with that. Then when I check tomorrow or whatever, not that I've been checking my emails particularly well, but that's what I would do. Anyways,
yeah, I wish there was like a flagging system for DMs in Discord. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Right now, the way you have to do is just put it in like a notepad doc, which take light of the detector. I mean, I would if I had something if I have something really important though, I would just do it instantly, right?
Okay, fair.
Take light of the protector and rage regen off the GCD. Whoa, Bonesy, no verse. Gallic, Notric. Tettles is a Woofkin. I unscheduled a Tettle's Flame, Maticus not of US Proudmoore, and Sean. Thank you all for your support.
Bonesy, it's verse week. You should go get that.
True. Verse 3 is on the vendor right now. Even when I haven't logged into WoW since that came on the vendor, I have that rotation just ingrained into my skull. What's going to be on the corruption vendor? Oh, I know.
Dredo still has a timer?
Yeah. Dude, my stream was popping for a while. When I had that when does the corruption vendor reset timer, man, that saved me so many questions in chat. I would literally just point at. I knew where it was beside my camera, and I would just point where the corruption vendor reset thing was. All right, we have some new Shadowlands affixes to discuss. They have been data mined. They are not yet implemented, so we haven't played them. But here's what they are. So first of all, we already knew about Prideful, which looks like a seasonal affix. That one's the one where defeating non-boss enemies fills players with pride, eventually forming a manifestation of pride they must defeat. There's been a little bit more data mining about Prideful as well. I don't think we've actually talked really about it yet on our show.
We're waiting to see what it's actually like. I actually suspect that it will show up next week, and we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more. I'm kind of surprised that Mythic Plus wasn't implemented this week onto the beta, so I do believe that the rest of the dungeons plus the seasonal effects will probably show up this next reset on beta. Fingers crossed.
The Prideful one, it looks like it's kind of like you want to build up as much pride as you can for each of the Pridefuls for reward, but that's also going to be harder potentially. But we'll really have to see how that one's going to work out.
Yeah, I think part of the deal with Prideful is that whenever you kill the Prideful mob, it explodes, doing damage to targets that are within like an 8-yard radius or something like that. Is how I understood it as well. So you can use it in a way to be able to. You can use it innovatively in terms of like. So yeah, you're gonna have to kill off the Prideful mob, but pull mobs on top of it and let it blow up everything, kind of deal.
Yeah, I've heard people describe this one as a single target reaping as well, where you get like a mob to fight at certain points throughout the dungeon.
I think there's a bomb component to it though, which is the most important.
That's pretty cool. Well, we will have to see exactly how this one works out. There is some speculation you can read about on Wowhead, but beyond what we've just done, I don't want to spend too much time speculating on Prideful, because I'm sure that one being the one that already has all the other data mining around it, and it looks like it's going to be testable soon. However, there are 3 new affixes that have been data mined but not yet implemented that we have no idea. We don't know when these will be actually playable or testable, and we don't know if these are supposed to be seasonal affixes. We don't know if these are scrapped seasonal affixes that just made it into this version of the beta, or if these are going to be new non-seasonal rotating weekly affixes, which is the thing I'm the most hopeful about, because I've been talking a long time about wanting to see some new affixes, wanting to see a shakeup, and not be playing bolstering explosive for the 3rd expansion in a row. So let's go through each of these 3. Talk about how they sound. Again, this is just speculation from us, so I think waiting until they actually show up is, of course, going to be the best option, but we can at least start thinking about them. So, inspiring is the first of these. Some non-boss enemies have an inspiring presence that strengthens their allies. This one's an interesting one. It is reminiscent, I would say, of Infested, largely, where...
Really? Okay, I was thinking Tides Emissaries.
Well, so with Infested, there was like some non-boss enemies each week were effectively needed to be killed first, right? Because they healed all their nearby allies. So it depends on exactly how this one works. It depends on if it just increases the damage of their nearby allies, or if it also makes them more tanky, right? If it makes them take reduced damage or heal. Either way, I don't think it'll come with that infested component of the Gahoonies reinfesting.
Yeah.
Which... That going away was a lot of the pain from Infested would come from when that got out of control. This is also something that's gonna reward priority damage probably, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, I don't know. Tides Emissaries were. This could be Tides Emissaries, right? Strengthens their allies could mean interrupt immune, but I would hate that. I hated packs with Tides Emissaries in them.
CC immune is not fun.
Yeah. Spiteful is the second one on the list here. Fiends rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players.
Think from Beyond.
Dude, yeah.
That's what that means. Oh shit.
We're still in BFA, man.
When am I gonna get my random corruption slow as well?
Dude, this one, it looks like a little. So it looks to me like this one's going to be another affix that's melee unfriendly and ranged friendly. Because like if the corpses are turning into, you know, you don't want to be. If you start 40 yards away from the corpses, these things probably time out before they get to you. It depends though. It depends. Do you need to kill these fiends, or do they despawn? You know, are they like
if you have to kill them, then if you have to kill them, then it's nice that they spawn in melee, right?
Right. Also, like, what happens if they connect? Are they just gonna, like, they could explode like things from beyond, or they could just fixate and melee you, right? And melee you until you die or they die, right?
Well, the fact that it says random players leads me to believe that it's not thing from beyond-esque in the sense of like it sounds like a group activity, not like an individually focused
right.
event.
Yeah.
I thought the opposite because it says random players. Like I was hoping it'd be like, oh, all 5 players will have this like quaking timer of something spawning and chasing them at once, but it does say pursue random players. So
to me, this isn't. To me, this doesn't look like a quaking timer. This looks like an on-death affix.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And with it being an on-death affix, I was wondering if it's going to replace bolstering potentially.
Oh.
Like whenever I saw this come in 3, I was wondering
awesome,
if all 3 of these were actually replacing the on-death affixes, bolstering, bursting, and sanguine. I was wondering if all 3 were going to get axed.
Oh, how happy would you guys be if they replaced bolstering with anything?
Dude.
But then I thought about it and I was like, they were trying to rework bursting coming into Shadowlands, so them removing it wouldn't make much sense either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bursting's already got changes, right? So it's probably not going away. All right, the next affix is storming. While in combat, enemies periodically summon damaging whirlwinds.
Oh god, please, dude, just add gale, or what is it, like gust
Gale
winds?
slash.
Gale slash. Where the fuck
gale slash tornadoes, tempest tornadoes, or blowback tornadoes?
I fucking hope it's gale slash tornadoes, dude.
The like the ones from Adders and Aspects.
Oh no, the fucking King's Rest ones.
Oh,
the King's Rest warrior ones.
Rest,
the swirly ones from the warriors.
The terrible swirly ones that require you to be in the fucking warrior's hitbox.
Dude, those things are heat seeking. Those things hunt you down. There's no way to dodge them.
It's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that it's nothing like any of those, actually.
This is an affix that is hugely tuning dependent, right? Because like you could imagine a way where this affix has like no impact. You could also imagine it being sort of like Sanguine, where they just tune up the AoE until it is annoying.
Or you could imagine it be like Quaking, where it's pre-nerf Quaking, where it's just
does so much passive damage. Yeah. I could see it being that way. I don't know. I
suspect that it's going to be on the easier side, though.
I think all 3 of these affixes could be great or could potentially be bad, depending on how they're particularly implemented. So I think that the main thing right now is I'm optimistic that they are making new affixes. Like the fact that they are making new affixes is just beautiful to see. And it looks like these ones are, you know, there's some depth to them. There's some nuance. They're not just like a lot of the original Legion affixes are kind of like, you know, one line, easy to understand, really easy to explain, like, you know, simple mechanics, and these all look like they're actually, you know, flavored a little bit and have some more tuning knobs to adjust on them.
Okay, so a question that I wanted to pose. Do you think that these are going to be in addition to the current affix rotations, or do you think that these would be other affixes being removed in their place?
I think that they probably need to remove some if they're going to add 3.
Okay.
Because if you add 3, then we get to this point where over our 12 weeks, you're only seeing every affix. Every affix only shows up twice, right?
For me, whenever I read this, I was sitting here thinking, I was like, what affixes would I remove? So one of these is an on-death affix, so I felt like bolstering would be the candidate to remove. And then the other 2, I felt like it needed to be like necrotic and skittish. Maybe you guys feel like maybe you guys feel like something else would be a little bit more.
I mean, I'm biased on that, but yeah, necrotic and bolstering, if both of those went away, I would be so happy.
People in chat are saying explosive.
Yeah, explosive. Explosive, I feel like, is one that has a conspicuous lack of reworking on the beta as well. That might make it more likely to be a replacement, right? Because like bursting, volcanic, those have both been reworked in Shadowlands, so they're probably not going away.
That's
Storming,
right. Volcanic
right?
got changed to knock you up.
Storming
Yeah.
looks like it's sort of a similar space to Volcanic, right? But because Volcanic has been reworked, I don't expect to see it going away.
What do you guys think about the changes to explosive coming into BFA? All they did was turn the orbs from green to red. Do you think they're going to turn them from
Blue
red to purple?
Yeah, they're probably gonna be blue Shadowlands orbs, anima orbs.
No. They're gonna be covenant specific. Based on what covenant you pick, you get to see a different color. So if you're Night Fae, then you get to see blue orbs. If you're Kyrian,
right.
you get to see yellow orbs. If you're
Dude,
Vintage, you see red orbs.
I have the idea. Explosives, there are now 4 different types of explosives, and you can only damage the one of your covenant. So
shut the fuck up.
Abort.
If you go into a dungeon without a member of every covenant, you just can't kill those explosive orbs.
Shut the fuck up.
No, a yellow orb spawned 30 yards away and my boomkin was dead. No.
That is a cursed suggestion.
Dude, could you imagine just how great you'd feel about picking Night Fae when your group just needed you to kill those Night Fae orbs? You're just like, yeah, I'm doing it. This is my identity that I really liked. Maybe it could play a cool furry uwu sound every time you did that as a Night Fae as well. Every time you killed a Night Fae orb.
God, stop.
All right.
We're deleting this VOD.
Yeah, we'll hide the evidence.
This was a cursed conversation, but I think circling back, we're all pretty optimistic for just the fact that they're adding new affixes. They may or may not suck at the beginning, but the fact that something is coming, I think, I'm excited for.
All right.
Me too.
Let us move on to our tip of the week. I guess actually before we do that, do you guys think there will be more affix? I was actually surprised to even see these 3. I think that.
Do I think that there will be more?
Yeah.
Probably not. So with this expansion, they've reworked 2 affixes, kind of, with bursting being able to be dispellable and volcanic now having a knock up component to it. Now, if they add these 3 and say they do remove 3 more, I don't believe that there would be anything else coming. They did also change Tyrannical, didn't they? A little bit.
Yes, yeah. So. They're basically trying to make it so that it is consistent and not just
there's supposed to be some uniformity to it.
Yeah, which is good. That's good. All right, let's move on to our tip of the week segment. My tip of the week actually relates to Necrotic, which is an active affix right now, and maybe it's going away in Shadowlands, but right now, my tip for how Necrotic works that some people may not know is that for a boss enemy to apply a stack of Necrotic to you, it actually needs to auto-attack you successfully twice. So the first successful auto-attack that a boss makes against you will apply Necrotic. The second one won't. And then the third one will again. So if you are super min-maxing as a tank and tracking whether or not you're dodging or parrying and stuff to try and reset stacks, you can actually track whether or not you are 1 hit or 2 hits away from getting a new stack. I don't think that very many people actually do this in practice, but it is a weird idiosyncrasy with how boss Necrotic works. This was added at some point in... I think it was added at some point in BFA beta to slow down Necrotic acquisition on Tyrannical. On boss fights.
Was
yeah,
sometime between Legion and BFA, yeah. That's why on some boss fights you will randomly drop stacks when the boss casts a long ability as anything but Brewmaster, and then other fights like Volcall, he melees really quickly and doesn't really ever stop in phase 2, so you just can't really drop Necrotic unless you get lucky.
Yeah, those highest attack speed bosses, like Harlan's last phase as well, not usually an issue because it dies so fast, but really hard to avoid stacking up Necrotic on those. Except for Brewmasters. Brewmasters are so... Brewmasters on Volcall, you still get natural resets. At every other tank, it's really hard.
Yeah, single target on Brew, you get a lot of dodges. It's really nice.
All right, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
Mine also has to do with tanks, but this is for Shadowlands. So if you're looking at playing tanks in Shadowlands and you're seeing your favorite streamers play them and looking at which tanks do the best in certain situations, try to ignore the damage they do. The damage is likely going to get balanced roughly around single target and raid eventually with tanks, but it's usually farther back priority than the DPS classes are. So don't worry about that too much, but definitely look into which tanks have the most offensives available at certain times throughout a fight, have the best ability to pick up mobs around them with threat, how consistent they are with their resources. You know, that kind of thing is what really makes a tank good. Like how well they can survive any given situation, not the damage they do.
Same with DPS. Actually, they haven't really hit many, if any, tuning passes on classes currently. So there's a lot of things that are going to change. Most of the time, tuning passes don't even occur until like 2 weeks into the expansion either. So you never truly know how overtuned or undertuned some stuff will be. You can get like a generalized idea by playing beta and understanding, like Trell said, what makes stuff strong.
I would say that for tank damage, if you're trying to pick a tank that's going to be sick in M+, don't look at absolute damage numbers relative to the other tank specs. Look at ratio of AoE damage to single target damage. If you have a tank that does a lot of AoE relative to single target, like if you do 3 times as much damage on 5 targets as on 1, and there's another tank that does 2 times as much, the 3 times as much one is that ratio is more likely to survive to the actual version.
So what about Guardian doing 30% of its damage in melees?
Yeah, when auto attack is your damage source, that is really bad news for M+. That's auto attack does not scale well into AoE, let me tell you.
They're so undertuned though. I'd say it's pretty likely they're going to get some large.
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're getting a rework even. Like, dude, they're so bad right now.
Guardian Druid, Havoc Demon Hunter. Those are my two. If I had 2 more redesigns left to do, which I feel like that's probably the amount that are left available at this point, I would give it to those 2 classes, I think, or those 2 specs. All right, Tettles has for us a delightful clip of the week from the second best mage in Pop-Tart Corn Dog, Master Chow. Let's go take a look.
Third best. You guys got a new mage recently.
That's what I was referring to.
Well, I was calling Pupcakes better.
Oh, okay. I was just going by Radar.io score.
Oh, okay.
All right, here we go. This is the darkness. Into the darkness save from the
gets saved by darkness, hit by Cyclone Strike to take off his blazing barrier, dies to static shock. Wow.
That's the thing. It's kind of like, it feels to me like that. You guys ever seen the movie Final Destination? Where like when you cheat death once, it comes for you until it gets its due. I feel like that's what's happening to Chow there.
Yeah, Chow is definitely like being a mage in high keys this season is basically like permanently being in Final Destination, the movie. Like you're just dead at some point. Everyone's gonna try to save you, but you're gonna die at some point.
That's why you get every single iron bark.
True. All right, let us move on to our main topic. So we have the first thing we're going to talk about is Covenant-specific dungeon interactions. We already talked a little bit about this when it started getting spoiled, but now we have most of what these are. So we can talk about these in specifics rather than just in general terms. So here's the way it looks like it's going to work. Each Covenant has their zone that you quest in for them. Each zone has 2 dungeons in it, and your Covenant has abilities that improve your experience in the 2 dungeons of your zone. So if you're a Night Fae, it's the other side and Mist Eterna Scythe. If you're a Carrion, it's Necrotic Wake and presumably the Halls of Ascension. If you're Venthyr, Sanguine Depths and Halls of Atonement. And if you're Necrolord, Theater of Pain and Plaguefall presumably are going to be the ones. Now we don't know what the all of them are yet, but we know like 6 of the 8, I think.
I think all of them are known. I think that I'm not sure what the Halls of Ascension one is.
So let's start off by talking. I guess we could start off with generals, but I think it makes sense when you're having this discussion to actually know in specific detail what is actually happening, because I think that does affect how important these are. First of all, it does look like these will happen in M+. So far, they have worked in M+, and we'll see when M+ gets turned on again. But for people saying that this is going to be an M0 only thing, I believe that to be wishful thinking. I think that this is something that we will absolutely be seeing in M+ as well. So in the other side, here's how it works. And this was discovered by Undad TV, Titanforge podcast viewer. This is the Night Fae Covenant bonus. They're haunted urns throughout the dungeon. And In it, so in this dungeon, you randomly find haunted urns around the instance, in set locations perhaps as well. I don't know if they're set locations with some randomness or just always in the same spots. Clicking the urn will start a cast that is broken upon taking damage. If you complete the channel, it will AoE stun all enemies within 30 yards for 10 seconds.
30 yards.
Yep. So I feel like that one is about the level of tuning to where they should be because of where the urns are located. The urns are actually kind of out of the way for a lot of trash to be able to actually be pulled into it. I mean, some of the urns are in like really good spots, but generally, this one is okay. I feel like some of these other ones that we're going to see are definitely pushing the line. The 10-second stun is really nice though, and I think that if they were going to give Covenant-specific interactions, they should look at stuff that's less intrusive.
The thing about the 10-second AoE stun is it is definitely extremely powerful. You could imagine a case where you pull like 30, your tank lightfoots and pulls 30 enemies, and then you like go from urn to urn to urn and kill them all in AoE stuns while your tank is like kiting the whole time, but still building threat while they're AoE stunned.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, you could just get like a ton of threat for the 10 seconds they're stunned and then leave and be fine. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So that use case would definitely be extremely powerful, and you would, if that's doable, groups will really want to make sure they have access to that. Otherwise, if you don't have that, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're only stunning mobs for 10 seconds and they're alive for 40, you can't pull extra as a result of that stun realistically, right?
I'm also not sure what it does to CC immune mobs. Can it stun through CC immunity?
Probably not.
I would think,
often
I would
these kind of
think
effects
they
do.
should.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I think so.
Yeah, like Crushers get stunned by Eudora and shit still, right? Stuff like that does still happen.
Yeah, it really matters what this does. It matters how much.
Dad says that the CC immune guys do not get stunned.
Okay,
so
that's that limits this then. Yeah, my in general, I would rather not see these Covenant specific abilities in dungeons either. But I also think that this is one of the ones that I feel will be less mandatory, and that's where some of these other ones feel like they are going to be quite mandatory.
We're about to fucking get there. Yeah, some of these are really good.
All right, let's do Mist of Turn of Scythe next. So
that's probably the most controversial one.
This one, yeah.
There's 3 things in here, I think.
So, all right. Number 1, at the beginning of Mist of Turn of Scythe, there are some overgrown roots that a member of the Night Fae Covenant can click on to clear them, which lets you skip at least 1 pack of trash.
Which you probably want to do. The trash in that first little pocket area is awful.
Yes, that was what I was about to say. They have like the villagers who do the tranquility, and then they have I don't even remember what the other mobs are.
The other mobs also stun a random party member that you have to break out.
Exactly, they stun them with the root, which is just
Overgrowth,
terrible. Yeah, something like that. So skipping that trash at the beginning is really important.
Yeah, you can shroud them, right? There's not True Sight.
The villagers do have True Sight, although they have a very small radius on their aggro for True Sight. It's kind of weird. Like, you can for sure shroud them.
Interesting. All right,
so that's gonna get changed, I think.
There's another bonus here: 10% stat buffs. Before the first boss, there's another set of overgrown roots. Behind this set is a grove full of mushrooms. A member of the Night Fae Covenant can click the roots to clear them and allow the entire group to go and have a happy mushroom adventure.
There's 2 mushrooms in there. There's a 10% stamina buff mushroom and a 10% main stat buff. And you can choose which one you want.
It's 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, nobody wants stamina. I mean, I guess if there's some big one-shot down the line in Mythic Plus, like in Season 3 of this expansion, you might need those, but probably just everybody gets main stat.
Can you come back and get another buff later? Yes. Okay.
Well, actually, I don't know if you can get another.
You can
come back and get it later, though.
Okay. Does that feel like it'll ever be worth it?
No, because of where it's located.
Okay.
In the dungeon, because you have to go through the maze at some point. Like maybe you get it right before you go through the maze. I think more often than not, you're going to try to grab this before first boss, though.
Night Fae players will also be able to unlock something unique: a checkpoint after every boss. After defeating the first boss,
they removed checkpoints in this fucking dungeon to give you Night Fae specific checkpoint unlocks.
Why?
So yeah,
dude, I already died once with a non-Night Fae group, and I spent literally 3 minutes running back. It's so bad. Why would you ever remove a checkpoint?
I can't answer that question. Okay, so whenever we were talking about the urn and the other side, like being about the line where it's okay, 10% stat buff in of itself, I think that's a bit overtuned. And then you double down, remove the checkpoints from the fucking dungeon, and then you give like the checkpoints via your covenant. That is entirely too much. I think that the only way you can ever have checkpoints as an acceptable thing is if the checkpoint was in the middle of the maze, and if you failed the maze event, then you got sent back to that checkpoint. That's the only way checkpoints are acceptable. Is if
it buffed your ability to do the maze. Yeah,
exactly. No. Not even buffed your ability to be able to do the maze. It punished you less.
Yeah. I think that would be a reasonable bonus as well. I feel like those sorts of covenant specific abilities or covenant specific things. I don't know. I checkpoints in particular. I feel like checkpoints should be standardized to just always give you a checkpoint after you kill a boss. I feel like that is one of the things in particular that one of the reasons that it's hard to get into high end M+ is that when you play high end, when you do a high key with somebody who isn't used to it, they just like don't know when they're supposed to release because there's no consistency to whether or not you're supposed to release after you die in different spots. Like you have to know what the exact checkpoint rules are of each dungeon. And in this dungeon, now you're going to have to know, like, did we have a Night Fae? Did our Night Fae remember to click on this thing? You know?
I mean, we're going to talk about checkpoints in a little bit, but, like, holy shit, it's...
This is the one that I hate the most, is the checkpoint part, yeah.
I think everything else there is fine. Even the 10% main stat is kind of too much for one covenant to have access to, but...
I don't think it would be too bad in isolation, but like there's 3 bonuses in this dungeon for having a Night Fae, which to me, like, is this real? Are you really gonna feel like this is a nice little buff for having a Night Fae in your group, or are you gonna feel like we don't have this because we were stupid enough to not have a Night Fae in our 5-person group? Like, I don't know. I feel like that is going to be the more common feeling you have about this, but I could be wrong. Maybe people are going to feel excited to open up these paths for their group.
Luckily, I think the Night Fae is like a generally good covenant for a lot of classes, and so I think we'll have one anyway. But still, like, imagine a world where that was the covenant that nobody wanted to run.
Yeah,
Necrolord.
I'm leaning towards Night Fae for most purposes, although I might be going Kyrian for that first raid because there's a lot of bleeds to remove. Man, there's a lot of bleeds to remove.
There sure are.
All right. Speaking of Kyrians get a bonus in the Necrotic Wake. Let us go investigate this one.
This one's actually interesting. So I almost wish this was like a native part of the dungeon.
Yeah, you can find 2 malfunctioning Goliaths in the Necrotic Wake. The first one is located to the right of the first boss. The second one is located to the left of the bridge after the first boss. A Kyrian can use their Summon Steward near this Goliath. A new prompt will pop up when they talk to their steward. Can you reactivate this Goliath? And the steward will get to work. The Goliath will then activate, ejecting 20 anima orbs, which remain on the ground for about 12 seconds. Stepping on an orb grants anima exhaust for 4% movement speed, haste, healing done, and damage reduction for 40 seconds, which stacks. So 20
You can
orbs,
refresh it.
Yeah, but they're only on the ground for about 12 seconds, right? So you can't just leave them there.
That's true.
You're only gonna have this for like a minute tops, right? And this stacks up to 80% DR in addition to 80% damage done or 80% movement speed, haste, healing done, and damage reduced. Incoming damage reduced. Pretty potent.
This one, I'm pretty biased on this one. I'm really excited to like try out what I can do with it as a tank. But I don't know, if someone doesn't have a Kyrian, that feels a little unfair.
Initially, my thoughts on it were you're just going to give it to your DPS because tanks and healers aren't like real people. But after I heard where they were located, I'm pretty sure you just have to give it to your tank. And your tank has to be able to double up on a pack that he would otherwise not be able to double up on. And that's the way that you're going to be able to save the most amount of time with these buffs just because of where they're located. With it being in the first boss room and then like left of the bridge. I'm not even sure you get that one that's left of the bridge. And that's why I'm more or less okay with this one for Necrotic Wake, because going left of the bridge is just so fucking out of the way.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where there's a lot of okay, on Twitter, there's a little bit of a clique of people whose job is to be extremely negative about every data mined covenant related change, right? Who will like every single one is going to be followed by like talking about how ridiculous it is in the most bad faith possible terms. And so like for those people, they're like, oh man, if you have carrion in your group versus not in this dungeon, it's a literal 80% haste buff, and that definitely leaves out the fact that
You don't want first off, you also don't want 80% haste buff.
it's one person who could get that for 40 seconds in one or two spots throughout the dungeon that aren't particularly. It's not particularly easy to take this into a boss. I do think this is powerful, but this is another one that looks to me like I'm not actually convinced this is going to let you add an extra pull to your dungeon.
40% or 40 seconds of. You're not going to give all of them to your tank. You're not going to give all of them to your tank. But if you gave 10 of them to your tank, that'd be 40% DR.
It is. I mean, 40% DR for a tank is enough to let them survive a lot more trash. But if it expires after 40 seconds, you need to be quick. You need to be really quick to get that pull done in time. It might be doable. I mean,
well, let's put it this way: before versatile was like widely accepted this season in Mythic Plus, tanks had like 10 to 15% versatility, which is like a 7.5% DR. And then once they got full versatile, they now have about 40% DR, which they can now do 7 key levels higher. So that buff is not small for a tank. That is humongous.
It is huge, and maybe you can kite as it fades. So you can like go in and build threat for 40 seconds and then kite and still finish the pull.
Hear me out. Yeah. With the one that's to the left of the bridge, I'm pretty sure that's like a do not pull. The one that's in the opening, like the starting area, I don't know if you can like shroud to it and get it for like the first pull of the dungeon and just like bloodlust a fucking enormous trash pull with it.
You could also just pull a bunch of crap with the first boss, like probably 3 packs with the first boss that are all tank damage, and just milk the crap out of the debuff with.
Is there a lot of tank? You can actually probably get one of those necromancers in, and like with the damage reduction and everything, it's probably like less scary.
Yeah, but it's 40 seconds, right? Like if you're fighting that boss at the same time, if you don't make once that 40 seconds is up, and it's 40 seconds that starts when you pick up that ball, not when you pull the boss, right? So like
no, it's 40 seconds whenever you pick up the last
ball. Yeah, so you could leave one ball on the ground and like touch it right as it's about to expire and get like 50 effective seconds, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, you can take the boss near it and just like keep refreshing now and then too.
Well, but they despawn after 12 seconds. I don't know. Yeah. I do think this is interesting and powerful, but I don't think that this one is going to be dungeon breaking. I feel like at best this is going to let you get a bonus pull, right? Like you're going to save one. You're going to remove one pull from your dungeon, maybe. I feel like is about the right place to hit. Like remove one pull from the dungeon if you play great, and if
I think it's about mandatory though. I do think it's mandatory.
Okay, if that's the case, then I do not like that. To me this looks like something that is not mandatory.
Well, I think it will.
I think the robot in the starting area is going to be a mandatory to have, and you're going to be doing some funky shit in the starting area.
Because if you think about the progression of dungeons throughout an expansion, eventually you end up with the highest level dungeon being every pull is pure tank damage, except for like 1 or 2 pulls maybe, and everything you can possibly do is to eliminate damage going on your party, except for your tank, to make it more efficient. So your healer has to heal less, and everyone can do more damage.
Yeah. I guess the question is it going to be like bullshit double renormalizer tech on the last boss of Junkyard, or is it going to be something that's a little bit more feasible?
The question for me isn't whether the world first Necrotic Wake uses a Kyrian for this, because there's a very good chance they will. The question for me is like, if I'm trying to do a weekly 15 Necrotic Wake and I don't have a Kyrian in my group, how screwed am I? Because in Mists of Turn of Scythe, if I don't have a Night Fae and I'm not able to skip this first pack that everybody skips, and I'm not able to, get the checkpoints after depleting these bosses, I hate that, right? I'm not going to go to Mist. I'm going to do a different dungeon if I don't have a Night Fae in my group. With Kyrian and Necrotic Wake, I don't feel like there's this that has that same vibe.
Those Mist skips used to be herbalism bound, by the way.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. They changed it to Night Fae.
Yeah, but like, I do agree, but I don't think it's only world first keys. I think once people start doing it in the 20 level, like once it starts getting propagated to the 20 level of keys, that's when it starts trickling down to the 15s. And that's when everybody starts requiring,
True.
and it becomes mandatory, even if it's not.
The community thing, sure. The community is all, there's always going to be LFG groups that are like looking for something they don't need in a group. What I'm concerned about is like, will I in my groups feel awful without a member of this covenant? Because for many of these, I think the answer is going to be yes. For this dungeon, I feel like the answer is going to be you feel bad for this one extra pull that you have to do at the start of the dungeon because you can't pull like 2 packs together or a pack onto boss or whatever this ends up letting you do, and then it's over, right? It's done. It's not like the difference between doing a Shrine of the Storm checkpoint dungeon and a different checkpoint dungeon, right? Like it's not like you're just like you have the scepter of being screwed if you wipe over you the whole time. So for me, this one is, again, I would prefer to see none of them, but given that they're not going to, like, if we assume we've already lost on the basic premise, this is not one of the ones that I think needs to be looked at for. Like, I think that the Miss Eterna site, for instance, is
egregious.
Capital B bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that.
And at least with this one, it is unclear, and it will, like, different tanks will probably have different answers about what that lets them do, and different groups will probably have different answers about like how to split up those buffs. Like,
I think the Kyrian one is TBD. At least with the other side, I'm pretty sure like we can only imagine how good the other side's urns are, because the urn, you can't move the fucking urn, like it's there, right? Same with the robot in Necrotic Wake. The robot itself is a stationary thing, and he's just like laying on the ground, and that's to your advantage because there's some trash in Necrotic Wake on the left side where one of the fucking robots are, and you don't really want to pull it at all.
All right, so we don't have the Halls of Ascension thing in front of us here. Let's talk about the Sanguine Depths. But first,
while you're transitioning, I think it's also worth mentioning that Summon Steward is a 5-minute cooldown, so you have to do those 5 minutes apart if you have only one.
If you have one Kyrian, yeah. Also,
they would be 5 minutes apart.
You need to make sure that you haven't summoned your stewards to get your Kyrian potions. Especially, dude, could you imagine if that cooldown doesn't reset when you start the dungeon? I'm sure it would, because it's a long.
Gotta hope so.
All right,
that's like 2 minutes into the dungeon, probably you get that first one or so.
Let's move into Sanguine Depths here. So in Sanguine Depths, there's Venthyr Covenant bonus. This one was discovered by some folks from BDGG. That's Trell's. Dude, that's Trell's org. Look at it.
Oh my
right
God,
here
those
on
are my
stream.
friends.
I think Champion Max and them found it.
Yeah, dude, they're famous. Okay, so there are anima cages throughout Sanguine Depths. There are 4 that were found by the BDGG squad. 1 shortly before the first boss, 1 after the first boss in the first room to the left on the hallway, 1 right after the second boss, or right before second boss, and 1 in the hallway leading to the last boss. Here's what they look like. Any player that is part of the Venthyr Covenant can click on the anima cage to activate it for 20 seconds. Any enemy in range will be debuffed with Anima Drain, and the Anima Cage will count how many enemies die with Anima Drain active. 20 seconds after you click on this cage, the cage will give the entire party 1 stack of Sinful Boon for each enemy that died within its range during that time. Sinful Boon is a stacking buff that increases your damage and healing by 5% for 15 seconds.
Ooh, that's gonna be big.
Yeah.
Well, so okay, here's the thing.
How polarizing is it? So there's 3 cages, right?
In order to get the benefit, in order to get a high amount of stacks here, you have to fight a bunch of enemies and then click this cage before they all die, which means that you did your big pull, and then you finish your big pull, and you have 15 seconds of damage and healing done, right? But like,
yeah,
are you going right into another big pull?
The 15 seconds, it's really hard. It's really hard to get good benefit out of it. However, in Shadowlands, we do have the added luxury of most classes being capped on AoE, so you can pull 10 targets on top of one of these cages. All of your 5 target capped classes will end up only killing off 5 mobs. You activate the cage, and then your group will get a 25% damage buff and be able to hit the other 5 targets.
Okay, you can't like pick which 5 you're gonna kill.
Yes,
though.
you do. It is the closest 5. It's the closest 5 to you. It will be. That's part of why I think they might be removing Bullstring, because, boy, let me tell you, target capped with 5 closest targets and trying to deal with Bullstring, that's not a pleasant experience.
I was memeing. I was absolutely fucking trolling, but like
you can't like reliably separate 5 out of 5.
I feel like those cages are hard to use effectively. Yeah, I do agree with that actually.
Honestly, if the target cap system is the reason that bolstering goes away, I will change my stance on it and praise it for the rest of my life.
You think he's, dude? I think target capping might be worse than bolstering. I don't know. I'm not sure. If I was in a room with a gun and one bullet,
2 weeks per 12.
Yeah.
Target capping is active 12 weeks per 12.
Yeah, true.
I think I would rather have bolstering than target caps, but I agree that would be a silver lining, and I do like hunting for silver linings.
So hear me out though. 15 seconds on this damage buff. It's like Dratnus was saying. I feel like it's really hard to get good benefit out of this one. This is about the point where the other side also is, where it's like, yeah, this is probably good. Is this going to completely negate something in a dungeon and make it like to where you have to have Venthyr because it's so polarizing? It looks like the answer is no to me.
Yeah, I think that this is something that you'll use this a little bit, but I think it will be really hard to get good use out of this because of how finicky it is to time this all.
15 seconds? Like, it's so okay. Like, you're going to have your other trash pack pulled by the time the cage is going to release the
okay, you bolster kill everything. You click on the cage, you bolster kill everything, and then you have like 15 seconds before the buff even gets applied to you to go and start the next pull, right?
Yeah,
it looks like you have a buffer
work.
there.
Yeah.
It depends on how far the radius is that it applies to the group too. Like, do you think the whole party can just run far away from it?
It said fairly far. It said there's a fairly long range at least, but it's unclear exactly how long it is.
I hope that gets changed to instance wide. I mean, that would make more sense.
Yeah, I feel like instance wide would be appropriate for this as well. I feel like it would be pretty lame to not get it because of range. But either way, this for me falls into the category of totally reasonable.
It's 15 seconds.
Yeah, totally reasonable Covenant-related buff. And my first choice would be to not have anything like this. My second choice would be for all of them to look like this. Point of order as well. Imagine being a Venthyr, and this is the bonus you get, and you're watching Night Fae literally add checkpoints and skip trash packs in Mist Eterna Scythe. And you're just like, man, I feel so good about picking Venthyr. This is just so great.
THG makes a really good point in chat. This is more high risk than the others. So there are some actual trash packs in Sanguine Depths that are, I want to say like 7 or 8 mobs just natively. So there is precedent for you to be able to get like a fairly big cage, which you'll get like a fairly big buff going into the next trash pack. But to be able to get maximum effectiveness out of it, you do have to give up something, which is your safety. And I think it's more high risk than the other ones. Yeah.
Dude, Fem says you have to keep in mind checkpoints are useless if you don't die, though.
Yeah,
that's only 1/3 of the Night Fae bonuses in that dungeon, though. That checkpoints are literally a third. There's 3 of them.
Come on, Fem.
Yeah,
I mean, you know you're gonna like the checkpoints until the very last.
Fem is absolutely amazing.
Like, while you learn the dungeons, you absolutely want checkpoints so you can test and randomly
Fem,
die and be okay.
You got to remember, this is a North American podcast, all right? We're extremely acquainted with checkpoints throughout these dungeons.
Yeah, we die all the time.
We visit them often. All right. Let us move on to the Theater of Pain Necrolord Covenant bonus. So, in the Theater of Pain dungeon, this again was discovered by Undead TV, by the way. In the Theater of Pain dungeon, there are 3 Necrolord Banners, 1 in each wing after the first boss. Any player that's part of the Necrolord Covenant can click on a Necrolord banner to get the Necrolord's Chosen. Wow, they use the word Necrolord a lot in this. To get a buff so it's a 5-minute buff, and that buff gives you 10 increased versatility and 10% increased movement speed.
10% increased versatility, not just 10.
Okay, I was reading that tooltip and I was like, that's kind of weird.
That's a large amount of versatility.
Yeah, it's a 5-minute buff for 10% movement speed and 10% verse. And yeah, you could get a total of 15 minutes if you use all 3 of these.
So 10% damage, 5% DR for 15 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Squishy says, that buff is harmful. It'll make you take more conduction damage. You guys seen this? That conduction scales with verse such that for every point of verse up to 50%, it actually, you're taking more damage. But then when you go above 50% verse, it starts reducing the damage again. It's a parabola.
They're talking about the first boss of Temple of Thralis, the conduction, the mega damage circle that goes on one player. That is increased by that damage is increased by your own versatility.
So as you go from 0 to 50% verse, or 0 to 100% verse rather, you are It deals more damage to you
because it's coded as friendly fire damage.
Yeah,
so you're amping the damage up.
With 10% verse, you deal 10% more damage, you take 5% less. So that is increased damage relative to the baseline. But once you start getting above 50% DR from verse, then those points of DR start to be more valuable than even the 2% increased damage done. So as you get to 100% verse, it again starts reducing the damage. Super.
I love how we just found out about that from Reddit. 2 years into the expansion, I'm sure it's been like that the entire time, but the damage on it is just so high right now because it's the last season that everyone's like, "How the hell did that kill me?"
Well, I knew it was scaling really weird with versatility. I didn't realize it was. I thought that verse wasn't mitigating it. I didn't realize that it was
verse was actively killing you.
Damage. Yeah. I thought that you just weren't getting mitigation via versatility, and I knew that for like the whole patch, but like not actively killing you. I didn't realize how stupid it was.
That's so funny, man. All right, so anyways, let's talk a little bit about these Necrolored banners in Theater Pain. For me, this one, so it's definitely potent. You definitely expect that the world first group or whatever in this dungeon is going to include a Necrolord, perhaps. However, Necrolord is not a covenant that's looking particularly strong for most specs, with the exception of like Affliction and Destruction. There aren't that many I know of that are super hyped about this.
I think some of the rogue specs are also Necrolord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. I think might be Necrolord. We'll see.
Okay, so there's options here. And rogue people are saying Arcane. Yeah, Arcane, dude. Necrolord Arcane is totally the move. By the way, that is 100%. It's not playable if you're either of the other specs, but if you're playing Arcane, Necrolord is the sauce. So yeah, look forward to picking one spec for the whole expansion. So Necrolored Banners, I think that the magnitude of the power level here is small enough that it's not too impactful, but it is definitely
increased damage.
I mean, it's big, right? 10% increased damage is that's a Toldegor buff, right? But groups do Toldegor sometimes. They have done Toldegor without opening their cages.
In the MDI?
In the MDI, you see that, yeah.
Yeah,
that was the meta strat for a while.
I was
about to say, like, when would you run no rogue Toldegor and not get the buffs? But that's not fair because the cannons are also part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing in Toldegor as well is you get those buffs for the last boss. If they were duration length buffs, you would also even if you got them, you wouldn't have them for the last boss, right? Like,
that's true.
It would be less of a big deal, right?
15 minutes is really long. I don't know, man. I feel like these buffs are starting to hit the point where they're almost mandatory.
Yeah, 15 minutes of the dungeon is that's a high percentage of it for sure. That's like half the dungeon.
The banners are located in 3 different places too, so you can have really high uptime on them.
The question is if you can bring them into all the hard bits, or not. Which I assume you probably will be able to, because you could always backtrack and go grab the banner before any boss you needed it for.
Well, it also depends on how long the dungeon is. If the dungeon's only 30 minutes, then you only need 2 of them.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be probably... I feel like this is more important than the Kyrian one in Necrotic Wake, for sure. Maybe not for sure, but I feel like this one will be more important. I feel like this is going to be... Particularly, this one is such a like passive and free benefit. Unlike the Kyrian Covenant bonus in Necrotic Wake, and unlike the Venthyr bonus in Sanguine Depths, there is no risk associated with taking this, right? It's not like having a Necrolord in your group gives you the opportunity to do a risky play for a big reward, right? That's what the Venthyr bonus in Sanguine Depths lets you do. That's what the Kyrian bonus in Necrotic Wake lets you do. The Necrolord one is just free verse. It's free verse.
I read this wrong. It's not 15 minutes per buff. It's 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 per buff.
Minutes
so 15 total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. This is far more reasonable now.
It is. So I would like to see all of them being this risk-reward type thing. Particularly one of the bonuses of risk-reward is that this would scale down the impact it has on pugs to the point where, like if you're in a pug that doesn't even use these properly, you're no longer feeling awful for not having a Venthyr in your group, right? Whereas
you need to put a Taldazar double honor guard packs in front of them.
All right, stop that.
I mean, that would do something. That would also make it so pugs didn't use them, right? And the only groups that used them would be people who could like pull them to the side and vanish or whatever, and click the banner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel like groups are going to feel like Necrolords are important for this dungeon, and
I want my verse already. I'm just like already planning on making sure I have a Necrolord in that dungeon.
Yeah, I mean,
Just
so
saying.
the question is how. So as an M plus player, how much are you planning to swap players for different dungeons versus just making sure that your group has one of each? Or is there any covenant you feel you can get away without having on your group? Because so for instance, like Kyrian in particular, I feel like Kyrian is a covenant that a lot of specs are not looking particularly excited about.
Okay. You know what's funny? I think that worse players are going to swap people more than I think that for higher end groups you're going to swap people less, but your comp is going to be better at its base, whereas like LFG groups are just like worse groups are going to
Right.
I mean, they're not tied to the people that they're playing
If
with, right?
you're doing LFG and you're queuing up for and you're looking for you want to do a Necrotic Wake or whatever, and you don't have an Necrolord in your group,
Like we're just gonna
that
make
group is
sure
only
that we
going to
have one
accept
of
an
each.
Necrolord. Yeah, I mean, there's that's going to be the. I mean, they'll either know about it and do that. I feel like the default is going to be finding a Necrolord for Necrotic Wake is what you're going to do.
Or you say, okay, Rogue, you're Kyrian for raid. Necrolord is about the same damage anyways. You should swap to Necrolord. We're playing with you all next week.
Right. So for push groups, that's what Fam is saying in the group is make sure you have one of each covenant in your push group.
Yeah. Because you don't want to lob people between keys
Right.
like that.
The only way you do that is if somebody had two characters, and they don't even have to be two of the same class. Just like if somebody, if we bring THD for the Necrolord dungeons because he's a warlock and plays Necrolord, and then we get to lob him again like it's BFA for all the other dungeons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's BFA.
Well, there are some groups like that though, right? Where it's there are like it's like Bear Squad, right? Bear Squad has
The
like
sixth
6
man.
types of people. Yeah. So doing that kind of
Yoda.
swapping around for certain dungeons is potentially an option. The other one would be like, you know how like Fu plays 2 characters in the Nerf squad, like that.
Yeah.
He could cover 2 covenants, right? Effectively that way, even as different classes as well. But I think though that the default for most push groups is going to be to make sure that you have access to all of the covenants or all the ones that your group feels is mandatory, which my guess is that's either going to be 3 or 4, yeah, of them. Somebody asked in chat, I know absolutely nothing about it so far. Will a tooltip show what covenant a person is in, or will you be able to hide it? I'm actually not sure how easy it's going to be to inspect that.
Yeah, I don't know either, actually.
Shit, that's... so you're going to have to re-equip your Heart of Azeroth neck, and then it's going to show it next to it.
I don't think that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think it says it in the tooltip at all.
Yeah, I wonder if there will be a way to track it. I wonder, dude. Okay, here's
Raider IO is going to be the most toxic add-on of all time.
Let me tell you,
it's going to tell people what covenant you are.
Let me tell you, if there is no way to figure out what covenant there is, and I have to summon you and tell you to press your covenant-specific ability to see what covenant you are in LFG.
No. Raider IO tooltips. Raider IO tooltips are just going to tell you.
Well, if there's no way, like there might not be a way for them to parse that data, right? Like they might just
be at the armory.
I mean,
it has to be in the armory.
Will the armory tell you what covenant somebody is? It doesn't have to.
It almost has to.
Beta had a reputation with the covenant when you were given a temporary covenant. Yeah, that's what was happening for raid testing. That's the thing is, so either Blizzard purposefully obfuscates which covenant you're in, right? If they purposefully make it so that you can't easily figure out what covenant somebody's in, that would be the goal. The goal of that kind of move would be to prevent groups from doing this, right? To prevent groups from LF Necrolord. If that's the case, then yeah, it's going to be link covenant ability, or it's going to be like, show me your covenant ability right in front of me, or else we're going to kick you. But that will be less common than just checking a tooltip, right? Like that will be less common. People will sneak into groups, but also that will be. Here's the other thing.
That's so scuffed.
If the way to identify what covenant somebody is to use the Raider IO tooltip, that will further increase the amount of hate that people have for that add-on.
I love that. I love the thought of that because that just makes people so mad.
It's there is no way that we get out of this with everybody happy, because fundamentally there's a group of people that want to just be able to get invited to whatever group they apply to, right? They want to be able to, they do not want there to be groups that LF Necrolord. They just want to be able to get into that group, right?
They don't want to be declined from any group.
Right. Now, my argument to those players is to just join the pull the ripcord, anti-covenant locking bandwagon, but a lot of those players love the Covenants and they just want to be able to get accepted anyways, which to me, that feels inconsistent. But if that's you are somebody that does not want, you don't want the game to snitch on you. You don't want the game to tell anybody what Covenant you are. And then there's a group of people that actually want to get access to checkpoints in dungeons or whatever, so they want to make sure they have a Night Fae in their group. And
or they just see the dungeons done by a high-end group this way, and they believe that is the optimal way to do the dungeon,
which it is.
And they're looking to mirror it or mime it in some way,
right? And so those groups will want to have. It's like watching that dungeon.
It's like watching a MOBA, and you just build the exact same thing as your favorite pro player.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know that you're not going to use it as well, but you'd rather not be literally unable to purchase the same item that the pro player purchased because of that choice you made. All right. It's also true that if it's scraped off of armory data, then the add-on will be slow to update if you do change. Usually, it'll you'd have to make sure you updated it that day or whatever.
Oh, by the way, I meant to mention this earlier, but we got carried away. The movement speed buff from the Necrolored is always a nice thing as well. Like, usually when you see something with movement speed, you kind of look at the other aspect, like, oh, the 10% burst is the good part, but movement speed is actually very valuable. It saves time throughout the dungeon and can allow players to dodge mechanics easier than they could have before, or like straight up just outrun some things. Like, when I have 2 long strider traits on my prot warrior on live, I can outrun the tank buster instead of just having to rely on abilities to get away from it.
I think that Growl
speed is really good.
I think Growl slots a movement speed gem in his gear. I think that
Holy Paladins slot movement speed gems in their gear because they can't outrun the Dark Fury otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same thing with that.
Like normal things, right?
Yeah. All right. So Squishy asked, how would you feel if the Covenant buffs were disabled or always enabled past a certain high key level? I feel like this would do some good. I worry about where you set your banner. You set your definition at high, right? Because if you set your definition of high at 15 or 20 or whatever, and people plugging their weekly 10s are still gonna, like, that will further make the group doing the weekly 10 feel bad if they don't have it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting, but I really doubt that they would consider doing that. To me, it does not look like this is something that they would selectively enable or disable. But I would of course prefer that. Yeah, anything to make it so that I do not have to, when organizing my group, lob people based on the Covenant they're playing. I would really like to avoid having to do that.
Well, I mean, we're already lobbing people based on the class they play. Like, this is just another partition of a way that you can self-segregate and remove other people from your group because they are not what you need. Like, right now, the 2 things that you're looking at are class and player skill most of the time. Now you're just adding a third part of it. There's like a third decision that you have to be made. Is like, are they the correct Covenant? If they pass, then all right, good. If they fail, then it's bad, right? And I feel like this is like almost strictly negative, no matter how you slice it, because like, I don't even think it's a benefit for LFG. Like, obviously you would say that LFG could have some added benefit because they you're going to just like get more classes and more players in, but I feel like you're just going to like run the same meta comp. And if that, okay, so say you have like a Ret Pally in your group because they're historically Kyrian, but the Ret Pally that you grabbed out of LFG is not Kyrian, they're Night Fae, you're just going to lob that person instead. You're going to take the same comp. Now you're just literally cutting down how many people are actually playing that spec even more.
Right, definitely. Yeah, your ability to play an off meta Covenant for your spec is that's something that is going to get you lobbed when people are expecting you to be that Covenant to get access to whatever buff they're looking for.
And that's my biggest problem, is that I don't like the thought process of like you ever having to remove your friends or people just getting lobbed over stuff that's loosely out of their control. I actually think class is within your control. Covenant, for a lot, like especially if it's a permanent decision like this, is not even that much within your control.
Right, and at least if I want to play a different class, I can level it up and play it as an alt, and that's fun. It's fun to level and play an alt. It is not fun to level and play a different Covenant of the same class. That is awful. It is miserable to play a second character of the same class for most people. So it's you don't get that out like you do with classes. All right. Let's see. So we can talk a little bit about, since we were talking about checkpoints in given that there are some that get unlocked by having the right covenant, what is the checkpoint situation looking like overall in Shadowlands right now?
Trell, you want to start?
I know that the other side has the opposite problem of everything that we normally want Blizzard to do. They added a checkpoint after every boss, and it actually makes it worse than it would be if you just like started at the beginning of the dungeon. So the other side is like you start in the middle of it and you choose a pathway, like one of 3 pathways, I think, and they all lead to a different wing. So like, if you kept spawning at that middle point, like a towel, yeah, then I think it would be better than having a checkpoint at every boss, which is so weird that they did that randomly.
I think that the checkpoints should be at like the beginning of the area that you go into, not at the end of it. Because by them putting the checkpoint at the end of the area that you go to, then it's like you have to cross the map occasionally. And you're like, what the fuck is this?
I feel like having a checkpoint. So even in a dungeon like a Taldazar, where it feels better as a player to have your checkpoint just always be at the start of the dungeon, I would like to move to. I prefer to be in a world where we just always updated our checkpoints to the boss. So I would be fine with it happening that way, even if it's detrimental, just so that it's consistent. Okay, however, we're not getting that benefit here, so it's not consistent. So given that, yeah, I'd rather just have it be, in the middle.
Yeah, and as it currently stands, Plaguefall only has a checkpoint after Dr. Ickes. That dungeon is really fucking long, by the way. Mist of Tierna's Scythe, we talked about their checkpoints. They've had them removed. Necrotic Wake does not have a checkpoint, and that's a really fucking far run back. And then Halls of Atonement also doesn't have a checkpoint, which...
Necrotic Wake definitely needs a checkpoint at the second
really
boss.
Long. I mean, Halls of Atonement does too, at least after Echelon.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, by minimum, every dungeon should have a checkpoint after the second boss, if it's linear. Otherwise, please just have like the checkpoint be in the middle or the spawning area, if it's one of those open dungeons.
Dungeons with only 1 checkpoint or 0 checkpoints in some cases have a significantly reduced clear rate than dungeons that have a higher density of checkpoints. So think about it. King's Rest, Underrot, and Shrine of the Storm all have 1 checkpoint, right? Or, in Underrot's case, 0 checkpoints. And all 3 of those punish you so heavily if you die.
Yeah, everybody's experienced the Shrine of the Storm Walk of Doom.
Or the King's Rest one as well, where you're just like... I mean, theoretically, there's that bridge bird... But that bird is a trap.
The trash pack.
Yeah, more often than not, that bird is that bird is so easy to not spot. There are a lot of common routes for that dungeon that skip both of the operative packs that bird interacts with. So, yeah, I mean, definitely reminding you of. I would say that thinking about in BFA which dungeons worked well and which ones didn't. There's a huge correlation in my mind with the dungeons that didn't have checkpoints and the dungeons that felt worst to play. Because in those dungeons, so if you're doing really high keys, you're always screwed when you wipe, right? If you're doing a really high key, you're always screwed when you wipe. If you're doing a Shrine plus 20, you're also screwed if you wipe. In Freehold, you're screwed if you wipe on a 26 or higher. In Shrine, you're screwed if you wipe on a 20 or higher because of that checkpoint situation.
Well, imagine if the first checkpoint in Motherlode is after Azarok, or God forbid it's after Rix of Fluxline.
Right, those checkpoints are just wiping is already so punishing in Mythic Plus, right? Wiping already costs you, like most wipes already cost you 3 minutes at least, right? Maybe, it depends. If your checkpoint's not updated, now a wipe is costing you 8 minutes. And it's almost impossible to recover from that in a lot of cases. So,
like, I think they did a good thing with Motherlode. The checkpoint at the first boss is really good because it's so hard to get there, and it takes a long time to run there. I don't understand why they wouldn't just apply that logic to any other linear dungeon like that. Or like slightly linear dungeon,
Yeah. I think that just having another thing that I hate is, I was talking about this earlier, if you start playing with somebody who's new to M+, there's so much you have to teach them, and a lot of it is stuff that is kind of cool, right? You're like, hey, this mob interacts in this way, and that's a really cool thing, and some of it's like, all right, this is super arbitrary. Here is the list of bosses where you do get a checkpoint versus the ones that don't. Memorize this and make a good decision every time you die, or else you're, really holding back the group. Because we've all played with those people, right? We've played with those people who press the release button when they shouldn't, and it costs you minutes. We've played with people that don't press the release button when they should, and that also is really costly. And the fact that you're just sitting there in your head and you're just like, do I have a checkpoint or not? Like, I've had that thought as well. I've had that thought a year into this expansion where I'm like not sure where my checkpoint is because there's no consistency to it.
I think Fem is memeing where he says he thinks the Necrolord ability in Plaguefall will be a checkpoint after the first and third boss. I think that, like, if Covenants they're dead set on Covenants actually adding checkpoints, they have to be extra. They can't be they should already have a good checkpoint system designed, and then on top of that, then you get something extra, not or like I was talking about, you get the Night Fae 1 in Mists, you get it during the middle of the maze. Like that, I feel like that is a decent checkpoint, like example. Or like you get to skip just a little bit of something in Necrotic Wake or whatever. Having checkpoints be the downfall, and like it just immediately depletes your key in a way, and it's overly punishing for something that's arbitrarily picked.
Yeah, like what if the Night Fae 1 in Mist was instead of giving you the checkpoint versus not having it, it like empowers the checkpoint so that everybody who releases gets like 50% movement speed for 20 seconds when they respawn. Like,
honestly, that's a fucking great,
great, I like that.
Powerful Night Fae theme, turn them into a little fox or whatever, Ubu, or a wisp or whatever, but not so binary between, you know, whether it's a Shrine of the Storm or a Freehold in terms of checkpointing. All right, let's see. I also, man, I feel like it's so punishing for pugs also.
You get home guards, dude, whenever you die.
Yeah, exactly. Home guards. Yeah, from League. Out on. All right, let's talk about another Covenant-related happening.
We got I just titled this as miscellaneous stuff.
Yep. Night Fae Shadowmeld. Sylvari Mantle. I was playing with this earlier when it existed. It is gone. It has now been replaced by, while in Soul Shape, you regenerate 5% of your max health every 3 seconds, which, by the way, this is actually quite a bit of HPS as well here. 5% every 3 seconds. It's not bad. That's 1.6% health per second.
Well, classes like Blood Decay can actually like cast and use abilities while in.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
dude, I'm a Blood
classes
Decay.
Can do stuff. Some get pulled out of Fox form as soon as you press something, but yeah, DK is fine.
I've played Blood Decay, and I actually think that the Night Fae, the Covenant ability for them is so good for DK, like, because that mobility is so needed. The like little teleport jumps around and movement speed increase. But yeah, I've been yelling furry stuff every time I've been about to pull a boss, and then just soul shifted into it. That's really fun.
Okay, so I'm sad this option went away, but honestly, I think having something that powerful on the very top of a soulbind tier there is just too much. Like, I don't see a way they could have balanced having literal Shadowmeld on your soulbind tree with the other one next to it and like making that equally as powerful. Mm-hmm. You can't really like buff or nerf Shadowmeld, you know, it's just, it is or it isn't. And so I think honestly they kind of had to remove it, but it does suck that it was there.
I do agree that it was oppressively good.
I think so as well. Yeah. So Undad in chat is saying that they removed an actual meaningful choice here. I feel like this was powerful enough that you were trolling if you weren't taking this.
Like even if other Covenants were good for you.
Right. I feel like the top end M plus groups would have been 5 Night Fae or Night Elf. But if groups are staying Horde, which it's unclear actually. We haven't really talked about this, but there's a chance that people are going Alliance for Castle Nathria. Dwarf for bleed removal in that dungeon looks kind of nuts. So we will see that. That is actually something that I wouldn't be surprised to see World First going to an Alliance guild. Not an existing Alliance guild, not a guild that's on Alliance right now, but a guild that is currently Horde and playing Alliance is something I wouldn't be super surprised by in Castle Nathria. But if you're playing Horde, I feel like access to 5 of these might be more powerful than all of the other Covenant specific bonuses and dungeons by quite a bit. So I'm glad to see that gone, because
I tweeted out that I was glad to see it gone, and there was a lot of interesting discussion happening about because I also included that I believe that Shadowmeld should be removed. Like
yes.
The drop in combat version of Shadowmeld.
Oh god, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Let Shadowmeld play all of the other stuff too. Like let it
removing channels.
Remove channels, stopping casts on you. Dropping threat, even like fade.
Yep.
Let it do all of that. The combat drop.
Meld resing people is like meld resing people is about where I would draw the line. But if you have meld resing, then you can't, like, you also have the other stuff involved too.
Yeah, I mean the full combat drop to me is I don't know. I mean, we'll see. right now we're not seeing any groups swap alliance. I think because Awakened removes so much of the need for meld skips, and
we
you
saw
have
people
rogues for
swap
Shroud
alliance in
anyways.
season
Yeah, in
Yeah.
season 3 they did. In season 3, groups did go alliance for push weeks. If people are alliance already for, dude, maybe this is gonna be the great alliance expansion. Maybe we're gonna be swapping.
swapping week to week because
Dude,
my
I'm
guild's
down.
staying
No, I
forward.
mean guilds. I mean, like if you want to be dwarf for Castle Nathria, if that's worth worth
there's
ranks.
there's no fucking way that our guild will swap to horde.
If Necrotic stays around and we're all and if we're all alliance and we're gonna have dwarf tanks too, and we'll just like play more weeks of Mythic Plus.
I mean, if
your guild's not going to be down,
if the top guilds in the world switch and don't switch back, then that is going to cause a huge, and if they do it and publicly say it's because it's the best faction, a lot of people are going to want to swap to the best faction.
Yeah, I mean, if the 3 top guilds go alliance, I guarantee like 50 guilds in the world will instantly follow them, or like not instantly, but shortly after
swapping back to.
Yeah,
to
if they swap back, then it's different. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like alliance racials are as good or better. They might not swap back. There might not be a huge reason to swap back. Who knows? If dwarf is OP the second raid in a row, then
maybe
it could be forever. All right. Anyways,
we'll see how bad the trickle down is. I think that I am not convinced that a lot of guilds are going to swap alliance based off of this. I bet that there will be like 3 or 4 guilds that swap alliance based off of this. I think that just faction balances are irreparably damaged, and that there's no real great way of fixing it. Because even if all of the guilds swap alliance, now all the guilds are alliance now, as opposed to all the guilds being horde.
Right. It's not a fix for faction balance to have it be the other faction that is dominant, right? A fix would be some way of getting to 50-50, and there's not. I don't think that 50-50 is an equilibrium state for the system. I feel like the system is always pulling in one direction hard or the other for because always the biggest factor is going to be where the guilds are. And
I don't think it should be based off of like I think that they should really focus more on the community aspect on it and not really like trying to separate it out as much as they are currently. I really feel like they should try to encourage, like, I don't know, even if it is just removing the faction barrier or whatever it is.
Yeah, just cross faction PV is cross faction PV would be the main thing that would allow somebody to both play the game at a high level and play alliance, which right now you have to pick one of those two, and that I think that is a big shame.
Well, the most fun that I have in WoW is playing with my friends, right? And
right,
like how WoW currently is structured, especially with alliance versus horde stuff, you're not always allowed to play with your friends, and sometimes you have to make sacrifices. Like if say you are on an alliance, like an alliance raid team, but yet you want to push higher and you want to push more competitive ranks and whatever else for raid, you can't do that as alliance. You have to go horde,
unless you're in Australia, in which case,
yeah. In which case, like it's the same thing is true for Australia, which like, but the
for horde, yeah,
exactly, for horde. Like the number one US guild that is alliance right now is Formality at US 32. It's like world 125 or something.
Right, which I mean that's a very high rank, but the thing is that being the ceiling is a lot
31 guilds ahead of them. Like what the fuck?
Well, and it means that if you're like a US 50th Alliance guild, you're in such a you have all the recruiting problems that BDGG, US second horde guild has without all the benefits, right? Without getting to pick up awesome streamers like Trell and stuff. So it's it's kind of a worst of both worlds situation where you get the drawbacks of being at the top of your faction recruiting wise without the benefits of being, actual top of the ranking leaderboards. All right. Final miscellaneous question of the week here before we have some user submitted Q&A that we'll get to afterwards. But the last one that was written down by us beforehand, would you ever recommend for normal people to play multiple of the same class for Shadowlands?
No.
My answer for this is generally no as well. I do think if you're a player who plans to play an alt or 2 alts in Shadowlands, if your goal is high level pushing, it may be worth considering, instead of having your alt be a different class, having it be a different covenant. If you are playing a particularly strong class, or you're particularly good at your class, or there are huge incentives to have access to 2 different covenants, which that is going to have to be determined on a bit of a case-by-case basis. But me personally, I am considering... So I'm probably going to play a Blood DK main. It'll probably be like Night Fae, but for an alt, it's unclear to me whether it will be more beneficial to my guild to play a Kyrian Blood DK or like a Brewmaster or a Vengeance DH or a Prop Paladin or something. So if you're in a position like me where your goal is to be as useful to your guild as possible, there is definitely a chance that your best option is to get more coverage of the same spec on different covenants. I think that is less likely though than playing a different class for me as a second character. So it's a consideration, but I wouldn't advise it unless you were unless your goal is I'm willing to have something that's a lot less fun for me in the short term to help out my guild's progression. That you were making a huge sacrifice there in order to do this.
So for me, it's like if you aren't doing splits, there's no fucking way. Like if you're not doing splits, there's almost no reason. And if you're at the point where you're not doing splits, then you may as well just stay raid specific covenant for progression, and then swap once progression ends to Mythic Plus specific covenant. If your guild's going to be doing Mythic progression the whole entire time, you may want to just look into if you're doing raid progression the whole entire tier, you may just want to look into doing your Mythic Plus covenant
on a different character.
Oh no! I was saying just do it anyways.
As progression.
Because sure, you're going to be hampering your guild's damage a little bit, but if you're doing progression in the long term like that, anyways, like
if your guild is progressing for 6 months instead of 2, then you probably can get away with whatever.
Exactly. That's how I feel.
If you're good, they probably will still need you, even if you're another covenant. Yeah, but it depends. I mean, some guilds for some guilds it's kind of offensive to it depends on the mindset of the guild, but like for some guilds will contain players who get offended if other people are doing suboptimal things. Even if everybody in the guild is like playing bad, they still want people to have their gear enchanted or whatever. And
or use potions for every single pull.
Yeah, potions for every single pull, those kinds of things. So it depends on how they perceive covenants, but they may perceive them that way. My guess is that most casual-ish guilds probably won't be too much of the Inquisition on covenants unless there's something where there's a huge fight-specific bonus. Like if there's a fight where a covenant dodges an ability and another covenant doesn't, and it's hugely noticeable, then they might start caring about who is that covenant and who isn't.
Mm-hmm. Or like CC break from Necrolored or something stupid, right?
To be fair, there are certainly fights that look like that so far, so we'll see how tuned those end up being.
I think we just have to do our best to make like an educated guess. Like I'm thinking between Necrolord and Kyrian for Brewmaster right now, so I'll go into the expansion when it launches and be like, I'm just going to choose Kyrian, and hopefully it works out. Hopefully it doesn't get nerfed too much randomly a few weeks into the tier, and if it does, so be it. But luckily I also have a second character, which is a Blood DK, and if just in case, if Brewmaster gets nerfed that much, then I still have my DK, which could still be strong. As long as you have options like that, if you're looking to play at a high level, I think it's okay.
The concept of that freaks me out to like so high of a degree of the odds of you getting nerfed after you made a decision.
It looks like it's not going to be too costly to swap covenants on a non frequent basis, right?
But what if you already swapped to that covenant or like swapped off of that covenant?
Yeah. It looks like it's not going to be too costly if they nerf Night Fae week 2 to swap off of Night Fae. It is going to be costly to actually try and play 2 different covenants on the same character on any kind of long-term basis, but the worst case of like your covenant gets nerfed and you need to swap, as long as there is still a good covenant for you, as long as it doesn't mean that your spec has been invalidated, which is definitely a possibility, then that shouldn't be too unplayable even in the middle of progression. I imagine they'll probably try to avoid doing mid-progression nerfs as well, though. All right. That's the end of our main topic this week. Let's move on to our Q&A. First one comes from Jason in Discord. Can we have Tettles and Dratnos discuss their experience with their M+ push group casting? Would they do it again? If yes, what would they change? Tettles, what was your experience like casting the push week?
I would do it again. I enjoyed it. Generally, I found it pretty fun. I felt like it was a lot of time involved, and in addition to that, I feel like I needed the experience of actually pushing beforehand to be able to have good conversations about what was going on, so that there has to be a nice balance, because like we couldn't potentially cast every single week even if we wanted to, because we wouldn't know enough about how the dungeons function or how unique stuff is, or be able to hype things up appropriately.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there needs to be a lot of balance, but like for Mythic Plus, there's just so much you learn by playing that you need to play a lot of Mythic Plus to be a good Mythic Plus caster, for the most part. I enjoyed those. I did again. Shadowlands. Yeah,
because like when you watch the players do the huge pulls or really hard pulls on a high level, it looks easy when it goes right, but there's so many like factors working together underneath the pull that you can't really see right all at once, at least. And so I think having that experience makes you guys good casters.
So what will we change? 1 to 2 weeks a season, I think, is about where we aim for something like that. Beyond that, if we could get like a prize pool, that would be sick.
Oh, dude, yeah, I would love to see.
I don't think that that's like something that we can reasonably do by ourselves like that.
I don't know how a company would make money off of it. I guess they'd probably want like ads or something involved, or like.
I mean, we could do that.
We could maybe try and crowdfund a prize pool. I think that would be a cool way.
Oh,
to go
that's possible.
Yeah, that would be dope.
Right. Okay. Right now we have it really like. We really did not monetize at all, right? We didn't play any ads. We basically had no reason to sub or anything.
This was a proof of concept for us.
Yeah. If we were to do it again, I would want to either do that again, which I'd be fine with, or if we monetize it, it would be in a way that like we created a prize pool for the top 5 teams at the end of the week or something.
Either crowdfund or org based. Or
your podlings sell carries. Oh,
Monka.
Hold on, wait a second.
We do not condone RMT. All right, next question comes from Nexy Druid in chat. At Tettles, can we look at the charts that WoW meta are passing around, and are these accurate or not? I guess I've rephrased the question a little bit to be a little bit less hostile up front, but
yes.
So let's take a look at these charts from this is WoWmeta.com's chart on WoW DPS rankings / tier list for Shadowlands beta.
Looking at stack rankings for DPS on whether it's Simulation Craft or WoWmeta.com is always foolish, and I would highly advise staying away from these things. Additionally, if you're making your decision on what class to play based off of these, I would absolutely encourage you to play Affliction Lock because they're incredibly broken. But
okay, dude, here's one way you can tell this is a little bit scuffed. Welcome to our rankings. We check this data every day and make sure it's accurate and up to date. The classes and specs are ranked by their overall DPS performance in raids and Mythic Plus for both single target and AoE situations. Then but the DPS rankings are given in a per second number. I think that's what's going on with these. By using the approach of combining dozens of real logs from last week's beta raid testing, we can measure the central tendency of this data set while taking statistical dispersion into the account to provide you with the most realistic chart.
Don't use this.
This is like you sim all of your alts on Dungeon Slice and then just like spit it out onto a table and put bars on it.
You sim your alts on Dungeon Slice, and you play the one that has the highest DPS on D Slice. You don't actually
so few data, and it's also just like a complete mix of data, like single target and AoE. None of this is even accurate at all. Probably don't look at this.
Just Death Knight is so unfathomably broken. The fact that it's actually in the middle of the pack is just astonishing to me. So don't even. Don't look at this. Affliction is OP though. You can play that,
dude. I only have like a couple of statistics classes in my background, so I'm not 100% sure on this. But I believe that these are made up terms. I measure the central tendency of this data set while taking statistical dispersion into the account. I believe that is a made up sentence. I don't think I can't prove it. I'm not a 100% statistician. I feel like that's made up. Okay, somebody says no, it isn't made up. All right, then perhaps that is
quickly followed by yes, both of those terms are bogus.
All right, so Twitch chat is divided on whether or not that's made up or not. I'll look this up. Hang on, statistical dispersion.
It does sound
okay.
Made up.
Statistical dispersion. Okay, no, it's variability, scatter, or spread. Taking statistical dispersion into the account. All right, and then what's central tendency? Central tendency
is
What if
Not
we're out of
as
touch? Maybe they're right.
Central tendency is a central or typical value for a probability distribution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Central tendency is not that abnormal.
Okay, so they're measuring. So that what they're trying to say by this is that they're trying to measure the actual average damage of the certain specs, taking into account that there's going to be some variance in the logs.
They're using two different data sets,
and these are in fact real words. And I'm mistaken on that.
They're using raid DPS and Mythic Plus DPS as they're using multiple data sets, which is, don't use this website. Don't use Simulation Craft stack rankings to pick a class either. Don't be stupid.
So okay, it's based on the beta logs from raid testing. Now let me tell you some problems with beta logs from raid testing. They tested 3 bosses in the last week, and those 3 bosses were not like those do not have standard damage patterns. There's Sun
one
King
patchwork fight, and then there's 2 AoE fights, right?
There's 2 big AoE, there's 2 target cleave. There's AoE funnel, and then there's a patchwork fight. So ranking all 3 of those equally, I'm not surprised to see Destro on top there, because Destro does well in 2 of those 3 situations really nicely. Either way.
And what about for Mythic Plus logs being baked into the raid testing logs?
Well, it looks like it's just from raid. It looks like this data is literally just scraped. They scraped all the raid testing logs.
Okay.
It doesn't look like there's M+ data in here, despite the fact that they claim that the data is based on overall performance in raids and M+ dungeons in single target and AoE situations. Their answer to what are the DPS rating based off of, it says entirely on raid logs from last week's testing. So, yeah, I mean, this is interesting. Nice to look at. I'm sure a lot of people are clicking on it and stuff. But if you are using this to make a decision, or if people are using this to tell you what decision to make, that is foolish. Do not do that. It is hard to make a good decision at this point anyways, looking into beta. There's always going to be a huge amount of the first raid tier of any expansion. It's always scuffed. People
always play suboptimal shit.
Yeah, people always play the wrong stuff. You can make an educated guess, and on average, maybe the things at the top of this chart are more likely to be good than things at the bottom, but I wouldn't even be convinced that that would be true. All right, next question. Say a guy wanted to maintain all the tanks in case one of them became meta. Is there a best practice to do so? Like always do a key, always do a weekly Torghast? So the weekly reward structure in Shadowlands for the weekly rewards is we've seen this, the Great Vault, right? Let me see if I can open this.
Yes. So let me talk while he's searching. Basically, you're able to, out of your weekly cash, you're able to get multiple choices based on how many things you have done. And you can either go wide in the sense of you can do arena to get some conquest, you can do a couple of dungeon raid bosses to get some raid boss kills, or you can do a couple of dungeons to be able to get some dungeon completions. Or you can go deep, where you can do 15 dungeons, you can do 10 raid boss kills, or you can do 500 conquest, and a lot of conquest, basically. And it allows you to do either one.
Typically in the past, I think maintaining like 5 tanks at one time, I just did like a weekly key on each, made sure they got some kind of weekly progression toward their Azurite and Mythic Piece. And then I focused the rest of my effort on my main, just like farming AP. Know?
Dorky makes a really good point. Have multiple accounts. Yeah, if you're actually looking to maintain multiple characters, doing your dailies on multiple accounts at the same time, like world quests or whatever, is really nice. Like obviously you can't like 2 runs of Torghast at once, unless you're Dr. J or something. But
I have 2 accounts that I run world quests on, but that's pretty much basically all I do. I don't use software on multi-boxing. I just manually tab out and follow my other character. But I do use that whenever I have to farm world quests. So the beginning of the X-Pack is a good time to have a second account. And honestly, after the first few weeks, I would just cancel my subscription if I don't play that character on the other account, because I don't really use it outside that. But it is definitely a big time save. Yeah.
For the weekly rewards in Shadowlands, it looks like that 1 mythic dungeon per week is probably the easiest thing to do to get a Great Vault reward. And there's pretty serious diminishing returns. I wouldn't try and force yourself to like do 4 mythic dungeons per character. Yeah, it's only 10 for the last slot now.
It's only 10 for the last slot now?
It's 1, 4, 10 now. And then 125, 350, 875 conquest. So you could try and earn like the...
Wait, you know what's weird about the conquest thing?
But
Like your conquest caps after 500. You can't get any more.
yeah, we'll see.
Or like unless you're behind on the weeks, right?
Well, it might still track how many you've earned or whatever for the purposes of this.
Maybe.
I'm sure that it will work. I'm sure that you will be able to get this third reward. I doubt that they would make that impossible to get. But yeah, so for those who don't know, this is not one of each of these rewards per week. It is choose one from however many of these you've unlocked. So
yep.
I think that for alts, it'll be totally reasonable to just get your one M+ dungeon per week and get one reward. And then for your main, you're picking one of 7 or something, or one of 6, depending on how many of these types of things you do. Definitely getting at least one thing out of your Great Vault every week. That's a source of high item level gear and should be probably prioritized. The easiest ones, whatever that is for your playstyle. Always do a weekly Torghast. We don't know. We don't know how incentivized you're going to be to do one of those per week. I think that I don't think you need to, right? You just do it to get your legendaries, and then you don't have to go back there, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you want to do 2 to 3 Torghast runs per week to get your Soul Ash, which is what you make your legendaries out of. You get the cap on that per week, and then you're done. So once you get all the legendaries, like Drano said, you're good forever, I think, until the next patch.
I'm kind of impressed with how not appealing Torghast looks now.
I know. It's only 6 floors. I ran it like 7 times yesterday for the quest line. Every time I got to 4-6, I like finally completed the build I was going for. Like I was playing Windwalker, or I was playing Brewmaster, but you get Spinning Crane Kick now, so I was like building Spinning Crane Kick traits. So I would just spin to win through the whole floor. And I finally got the build going, and then I'd hit the last boss and be like, okay, it's over.
Yeah. I when they were 12 floors long, the last 6 floors were always the fun ones, and the first 6 were always the struggle. So yeah. The shorter floor length. I do hope there's some endless mode, at least, that we can play for fun in there and get really OP.
I feel like the endless mode also wouldn't even be that great either at some point. I feel like it's just going to... I think that Torghast, the first couple of times through it, is going to be fun. And then once you start running it, I feel like there's no longevity to it, is more my point. That's what I make.
Definitely if you can't get to like OP builds and actually play with them for your reward ones.
There's a long one. There is a long floor one.
Okay.
I don't know how long it is.
Cool. Then
yeah, I haven't gone there yet, but
hopefully that one will be fun times. All right, I think that is about it for our show this week. This one, I don't know. We tried to keep it not from getting too negative, but definitely worries about the Covenant system in general persist, and worries about the specific Covenant M+ abilities. Also, there are things that worry me about them. Although I do think, to go back to that topic briefly, I do think if they land on the risk reward case for all of them, where they like, in order to actually get any benefit out of them, you have to like do something cool and risky and hard, and then you get like a small bonus, like a 1 pack's worth bonus. I think that would be a healthy place for these to end up.
I feel like it's weird though, based behind Covenants.
For me, the thing about this is that there's only 4 Covenants. It's not like it's going to be rare to have a Kyrian in your group to get the Kyrian bonus. It's not going to feel like a special bonus you sometimes get. It's going to be something you'll have most of the time, right?
Like I don't believe that you're going to... Okay, so yeah, you can say that about one specific one, but to have all 4 of them is rare, right?
Yeah, to have access to have 4 of your 5 players randomly be different Covenants is rare, but most of the time that you go into any given dungeon, you are going to have that Covenant ability for that dungeon.
Yes, but again, having like
my point is
limiting your key access.
My point
as a whole.
My point is that makes it not special, right? It's not like you're getting a special fun bonus for being a Kyrian or whatever, right? It's not like Core to Stars, where being an herbalist was rare enough that you didn't always get the herbalist bonus, and when you had your herbalist, you were like, oh cool, we get this little herbalism buff. Instead, it's going to be 80% of the time I'm in this dungeon, I have this thing that feels important and mandatory, and 20% of the time I'm sitting here without checkpoints. And
if ever the decision is to not do the dungeon, okay, would you draw the line if ever the decision is to not do the dungeon or to lob a player to be able to get a different player in their place? Would you say that is too costly?
Yes, I think that's bad. I'm making an argument against this, Tuttles. I'm saying that the upside of the reason that these are in the game is they want you to feel good about picking your Covenant, right? They want you to feel like you're getting a special bonus for being Night Fae, and you get a Night Fae bonus in the Night Fae dungeon. But the fact that a group is 5 players and the overwhelming majority, not the overwhelming majority, but the majority of the time, there will be a Night Fae in any given group, means that it's not a special thing you're bringing to your group. It's something where you're going to feel the absence, but you're not going to feel excited about it being there.
I just don't think you're going to zone in. I just don't think you're
Yeah,
going to zone in.
I mean, I think that is likely for Mists in particular, because I'd rather, if I had a Shrine of the Storm that had checkpoints and a Shrine of the Storm that didn't, I would never zone into the Shrine of the Storm that didn't have checkpoints.
Yep.
I think it's not too bad, for my personal opinion, as it is now. But one way to improve it would be giving it the Court of Stars treatment, where there's 2 ways to activate each thing. I think like 1 being the covenant that it requires, and 2 having like a specific profession, like herbalism. For that first skip. I think either that or Night Fae would be really good for all of Mists, or like blacksmithing for the big armored dude in Necrotic Wake.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love to be able to patch those holes with professions. And then
leatherworking is the banner, and
yeah,
I don't remember what dungeon that was.
Yeah, like you could easily assign professions that make sense to all these. I think hopefully they can do something like that to make it more inclusive.
I would definitely. I mean, that wouldn't fix the pug problem too much, because then it's like LF Kyrian or blacksmith, and like. But what it would fix is that if you wanted to play with your friends, and your friends all had certain covenants they wanted to play, you wouldn't just be looking at that group and be like, okay, well, either we can't all play together, or one of you has to swap off Event Theer.
No, you just make them swap their
right.
profession.
That's what I'm saying, is if you could swap professions, then that fixes that, where you don't have to do that anymore, where you can just be like, all right, I'll just go blacksmithing. Easy.
Would much prefer that.
Yeah, that would definitely fix it at the high end. I don't know if that would fix the pug problem. Okay. Let us end the show from here. We'll be back next week with another episode. It's going to be a good one. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Goodbye.